Welcome to the Accelerated Investor Podcast with Josh Cantwell. If you're looking to retire early with forever passive income, you're in the right place. This podcast is the go-to destination for real estate investors, both active and passive, and multifamily apartment investors, both new, intermediate, and advanced. Now, sit back, listen, learn, and accelerate your business, your life, and your investing with the Accelerated Investor Podcast.
So hey there guys, welcome back to Accelerated Investor. I am so excited that you could join me today, as always on this podcast training and video training series. I really enjoy doing these live calls and recording these podcasts immediately after something big happens in my business. Okay. And what I love about it is I love that I had some meetings this morning. I was at one of my apartment buildings, had a meeting with one of my lenders and bankers this morning, and super interested to tell you about what actually happened. And so this morning I was called by my commercial broker. He said, hey, one of your lenders that's going to fund your next deal wants to meet you face to face. Said, okay, no problem. I haven't really met any of my other lenders in the past. And Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, when they fund a deal, they don't ever ask to meet us face to face. But the lender was in town. It's from a local regional bank. And one of the vice presidents was in town in Cleveland and said, hey, I'd like to meet these guys if we're going to fund their next deal. It's a $12 million apartment building that we're buying. It's going to be worth $19 million when we're done with it. And, he said, one of our requirements is we want to meet all of our borrowers face to face. I said, okay, great. Let's do it. So we met this morning, me, my partner, Glenn, our broker, and the lender. And we thought it was going to be more of a meet and greet, which was fantastic. But the gentleman from the bank started firing away with some great questions. And I thought it was really good dialogue back and forth. And I thought you'd like to hear some of the questions that we got asked, and also my responses to those questions. I thought it'd be really good for you to hear exactly what we get asked, especially on a $12 million purchase. So there were 9 questions that I could remember that my lender asked me before approving the funding for this apartment deal. The good news is at the end of the conversation, he turned to me and Glenn and our broker and said, well, when do you guys want to close? Basically saying, hey, I think this deal is going to get funded. What day do you want to close? So that was a good, give us the warm and fuzzies when we were done. So here's the 9 questions I got asked. Question number 1, tell me about your background. Number 2, how did you decide to buy apartments in those markets? Number 3, why did you buy those properties in the past? Number 4, what do you need to do to raise the rents $50 to $100? Number 5, what do you need to do to raise the rents $150 to $250? Number 6, what's the average cost when you turn a unit? Number 7, how often do you take draws? Number 8, tell me about your management team. And number 9, do you self-manage or use a third party? Okay, those are some of the questions, the 9 questions that I remember getting asked just this morning. And here's how I answered them. Okay, so our broker sort of teed up the call, it was a face-to-face meeting in the boardroom at the broker's office. And he basically kind of did the warm and fuzzy introductions and said, he kind of threw it over to me. The first question was, Josh, well, why don't you tell... I'm not going to give the guy's name, the lender who was sitting across from us, but why don't you tell him about your background? And so I kind of went all the way back. I said, we started in residential. We pivoted over to raising capital and doing private lending. We then doing private lending and a lot of rehabs and rentals. Then we started doing private lending for other people. Then we started brokering loans. Then we started investing in apartments. And that brings us full circle to today. Then we had a conversation about the residential market. I told them how we were selling all of our residential properties, anything really under 20 units, but we're selling all of our duplexes, all of our quads, all of our single family rentals. And we started talking a little bit about COVID and how COVID there's just not much inventory that's on the market. People don't want to move in the middle of a pandemic. And so, but there are a lot of buyers looking to buy, even if it's in the middle of a pandemic. And so we had a conversation around residential, and we kind of went back and forth about why we're selling all of our residential. And I told him, look, I'm predicting that in 2022, there's going to be a pretty significant increase in foreclosures. There's going to be an increase in delinquency. There's going to be an increase in the number of properties going through the foreclosure pipeline. Right now, there's a foreclosure moratorium. And so the number of foreclosures that are being processed is down 85%. Well, in my area, if there's normally, let's say, 400 to 500 foreclosures that are processed every month, which is what happens in the Cleveland, Akron, Canton markets, imagine in December of last year, instead of processing 500, you only process 75. So you have 425 that get backlogged. Then in January, same thing, you got 425 more that get backlogged. February, you have 425 more that get backlogged. March, 425 more that get backlogged. So then when the foreclosure moratorium ends, let's say it's in July, you're going to process all your normal foreclosures, plus you're going to have a bunch of these thousands of foreclosures that are backlogged for the last year that you had the foreclosure moratorium. So we had a little discussion around that. And I thought that was healthy for the banker to know my past in residential and my focus now that I was selling all my residential, that he knew that I was 100% in on commercial apartments. And then we talked a little bit about how we co-GP'd, we general partner, co-syndicated, co-sponsored deals in the South, down in Macon, Georgia, Albany, Georgia, Mobile, Alabama, Lawton, Oklahoma. And he said, question number 2, how did you decide on those markets? And my answer to him was, we didn't really decide on those markets. We decided on the deal. And what I mean by that is, first of all, we were doing deals with people that we knew, people that we trusted, people that were friends of ours. And they were getting into those markets. But we didn't pick those markets because they were in the path of progress. We didn't pick those markets because they were, in an area where there was going to be growth. We didn't really care about that. What we cared about was the fact that we were buying them much like buying a residential rehab property. We bought them because we knew that we were getting them at about 60 cents on the dollar. And when you can get a property at 60 cents on the dollar, then, and you know that you could put money into it, then you know that you're in good shape. You know that you can buy it cheap enough and just do the capital improvements. You can force the appreciation. And when you force the appreciation, then you can refinance or recapitalize the deal. So we didn't really decide on an area. We decided on deals. These are deals that we could buy for $20,000 to $22,000 to $25,000 a door. And since we were able to buy them very cheaply, put about $10,000 a door into them, we were able to now sell them at $60,000 a door. So all in for $30,000, $35,000 a door, selling them for $60,000 a door, we thought was an incredible deal. So it was more about the deal and less on the market. Then we started having a conversation about the local Cleveland market and said, look, we're focused on Northeast Ohio. We're focused on Cleveland, Akron, Canton. We're focused on Columbus. We're focused on these areas that are within 2 hours of where we live because we know the markets. We grew up in this area. We can self-manage these deals. We can also bring in third-party management if we need to. We know the cost of construction. We know the cost of labor. And again, we're not buying in Northeast Ohio and in the Columbus market because we're in the path of progress. Now in Columbus, you could definitely say that's a really, really strong growing market. It's like number 17, number 18 in the country. It's growing. It's fantastic. A lot of Fortune 500 companies, Allstate, State Farm, a bunch of insurance companies. I can't remember which ones. The Limited, Victoria's Secret, all that kind of stuff is down in Columbus. So we decided on our market, local market, because we know there's older housing stock and because we know there's older apartment stock that needs to be modernized. So that was answering question number 2. Why did you decide on those markets? Number 3, why did you decide to buy those properties in the past? Sort of already answered this, but again, because there's older housing stock and there's older apartment stock, we can buy things where the owner hasn't been super engaged in ownership. Either the guy lives out of town and he owns a property here in Cleveland, but he lives somewhere else. Or the last several apartment deals that we bought were because the owner was, 70, 80 years old, and the guy owned the property for 20 or 25 years, and his depreciation schedule was running out. And so he was going to have to start paying taxes again when his depreciation schedule runs out. And so we bought those properties because they were ripe for unit turns. They were ripe for modernization and increasing the rents. Are you ready to automate and explode your real estate investing? We're searching for extremely motivated individuals who are sick and tired of wasting time and want to finally see real results from their real estate investing business. We're searching for investors looking to get to the next level and become a bigger, better version of themselves while being a more successful real estate investing entrepreneur. Apply for mentoring and coaching at joshcantwellcoaching.com/podcast. That's joshcantwellcoaching.com/podcast. Then we move on to question number 4. He said, well, what do you need to do to raise the rents by $50 to $100? So if the rents are below market, can you just get organic, natural rent bumps? And my answer was yes. We try to look for things where maybe the owner hasn't raised the rents for the last 3 to 5 years, and we could just bump the rents by $50, $75. And we're in B-class areas with B-class tenants where they're not going to really hurt by paying a little bit more. So we said, look, in order to raise the rents 50 to 75 to $100, the resident has to have a better experience. Okay. They have to have a better experience, meaning you go from manual management to using software. You go from writing checks and getting cash deposits and getting money orders to paying your rent online. You go from not having upgraded common spaces, not having nice landscaped common spaces outside, maybe not having a dog park or not having a jungle gym for the kids. Doing basic small things to the experience allows us to raise the rents by 50 to 75 to $100, even if we don't do a unit turn. So then we moved on. So the answer to question number 4 was the experience, right? And a lot of times we're buying properties that haven't had rent raises in 3 to 5 years. They're ripe for a rent raise no matter what. And if we bundle that in with a better client experience, we can easily raise the rents. Number 5, what do you need to do to raise the rents $150 to $250? Now we got into unit turns. And we said, look, a lot of the properties that we're buying haven't been modernized for the last 10 or 20 years. Some of them have the old yellow subway tile in the bathrooms. A lot of them have maybe older cabinets, haven't been painted. They still have old carpet. They don't have LVP. They don't have a new toilet or a new vanity mirror or a new medicine cabinet or a new tub surround. They have the old yellow or old white subway tile in the bathroom. I said, look, if we want to raise the rents by $150 to $250, we've got to modernize the unit and we got to harden the unit. And so the rule of thumb here is that we spend about $10 for every dollar of square footage that we have. So if we have a 700 square foot apartment building, we're going to spend about $7,000 to harden the asset, do a full turn of the unit, put in new flooring, new paint, new trim, new bathroom, new kitchen, probably paint the cabinets, keep the cabinets, because cabinets seem to last forever. Keep the cabinets, paint the cabinets. And so that will allow us then to spend on let's say a 900 square foot unit, spend $9,000. On a 500 square foot unit, spend about $5,000, harden the asset, and then raise the rents $150 to $250. And so he liked that. He liked the linear connection between $10 a foot in improvements. That equated to $150 to $250 in rent bumps. And then number 6, he had asked us, well, what is the average cost for a full unit turn? And I gave him that kind of rule of thumb, $10. So if you have 1,000 square foot, it should cost you $10,000 to do a full hard unit turn. Okay. Meaning we're basically replacing everything except basically the subfloors, the drywall, and probably the cabinets. We're kind of redoing everything. LVP, new trim, paint, keeping the cabinets, paint those, black matted, hardware, butcher block or remnant granite countertops, and then new tub surround, new low flow toilet, those kind of things, LVP throughout. Number 7, how often do you take draws? And this is something I think he really liked. See, I was a private lender for a long time. We made loans and then we did construction draws. Well, I hated it when somebody would take like a $50,000 construction draw in their loan, and then they would do $5,000 worth of work and they would want me to come and inspect. And they would want me to give them $5,000. Then they would go do another $5,000 worth of work. I would send out a guy on my team. We'd release another $5,000. I'm like, this is a joke. This is taking way too long. And I said, look, our budget on this property is going to be about $1 million, $1.3 million. He said, how often do you take draws? I said, twice a year. We'll do a $250,000 draw. We'll do another $250,000 draw every 6 months. $250,000 draw. We take that, we get the $250,000 back. Then 6 months later, another $250,000 draw. We spent $500,000. Another 6 months, another $250,000 draw. We spent $750,000. Another 6 months, another $250,000 draw. We spent $1 million. And finally, the final $250,000 draw, we spent $1,250,000, and that's taken us about 24 to 30 months. He liked that because he knew like we had the horsepower to be able to hire our team, have our own capital, spend our own money. And he wasn't going to have to be kind of nickel and dimed with monthly draws. Okay. He also suggested we could do all million at the end. And I said, that's fine. But if we do it at the end, then I don't even really want it. Because if I want to borrow money at 10%, let's say I pay my investors 10% preferred return, I spend $1 million at 10% preferred return. Now I've got interest I'm paying on 10% preferred return. Then I go to the lender and say, give me the draw for $1 million. I pay back my investors at 10%. That's great. But it cost me 10% while the money was in play. Now I get the $1 million from the lender, and now the cost of funds is only 3.25%. That's great. But in that scenario, I paid 10% for the money, right? I'd only rather borrow $250,000 and pay 10% and then get reimbursed the $250, then borrow the $250 again, get reimbursed for $250, borrow the $250 again, get reimbursed for $250. So over a 2-year period, instead of borrowing the $1 million at 10%, it's going to cost us $100,000, but it's going to cost us the $100,000 for 2 years because it's going to take us 2 years to do all the unit turns. That's $200,000. Instead, I'm only paying 10% on $250,000. Right, so I'm paying $25,000 and then another $25,000 for the second year, and so I've spent a total of $50,000 instead of $200,000 in interest. So that's why we take draws like that. Make sense? Hope that makes sense. All right, question number 8 was, tell me about your management team. So I just talked about the mixture between W-2 employees and 1099 employees. I said, look, we've got a group of guys that are on W-2. They get health insurance, they get payroll, they get retirement plan. They show up every day. They work 40 to 50 hours. That group is always going to be there. They're always going to be looking for work. Then we've got a group of third-party contractors. Okay, Marcus and Sean, another guy named Mark, another guy named Tony and Tony. They come in and they do unit turns. They just jump into a unit. They pack out the entire unit. We pay them a flat rate fee for turning the unit. And then they go on. And if we don't need them, we don't pay them. So we've got a mixture of W-2 and then also a mixture of 1099 guys that do CapEx. I explained to our management team, our management philosophy. Look, when we have 500 units in an area, now we need a full-time leasing agent that can market and lease out all the units. All right. Each property manager, an experienced property manager, can manage between 100 and 150 units. An inexperienced property manager can only manage between 50 and 75 units. So we talked about that rule of thumb. He liked all these rules of thumb. Okay, and then question number 9, he said, well, do you self-manage or use third party? And I explained to him, we self-manage during the stabilization phase because there's just too many moving parts. There's units that need maintenance, like leaks, electrical, plumbing. People lock themselves out of their units. So we've got to handle the maintenance, but then we've also got, as we handle the maintenance and we have people that vacate units, we then got to step in and we got to do CapEx. We got to do a unit turn. and we got to turn the unit. So during stabilization, we self-manage both maintenance and capital improvements. Then once the building is stabilized and we would call recapitalize it, that's a fancy word for refinance it, then we move possibly to third-party management. Okay, because the building is hardened, stabilized, much easier to negotiate the pricing with a third-party manager and negotiate them down. All right. So those are the 9 questions. There was maybe a few more, but those were the 9 sort of important questions that we got asked by our lender and banker. So when you get ready to get financing for your next apartment deal or even your next single family rehab or your single family loan, be prepared to answer questions like this. Number 1, tell me about your background. Number 2, how did you decide on this market? Number 3, how did you decide on this property? Number 4, how do you raise the rents or raise the value in an organic way? Number 5, how do you raise the rents or raise the value by forcing the appreciation? Number 6, what does it cost you to turn this building or this property or this unit? Number 7, how often do you take draws? Number 8, tell me about your management team. And number 9, do you self-manage or use third party? And when do you pivot from one to the other? Okay. So those are the 9 questions I got asked by my lender, my banker this morning before agreeing to fund one of my apartment buildings. It was a great discussion that I had with him. Got a lot of respect for the guy. He's running a very successful bank. And so obviously wanted to look good, but also was really happy with the discussion. I thought he asked very fair questions. I thought we gave very good responses. I thought we were really, really prepared. And I thought it went great. So here we go. We'll be closing this sucker now, basically the last day of March, and we'll own this new 220 unit on the 1st of April. I hope you enjoyed this interview and this training, whether you catch it on Facebook Live, whether you catch it on our podcast, whether you catch it on YouTube. Please leave us comments, questions, ratings, reviews. I just love and really require your feedback to know that I'm doing a good job. I don't want to talk to dead air. Nobody wants that. So just tell me how I'm doing. Leave us a rating, leave us a review, leave us a thumbs up, leave us a comment, question. I hope this helps you along your journey to being successful with multifamily apartments. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Hey, Josh here, and do you want to win a free Accelerated Investor t-shirt? All you have to do is give Accelerated Investor, our podcast, Accelerated Investor, a rating and a review on iTunes, okay? Do that now. Then send us a screenshot on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. What we're gonna do then is every week we're gonna pick our favorite rating and review, and we're gonna send that person a free t-shirt and maybe, again, some other cool, fun stuff as well from Accelerated Investors. So, again, don't forget to take a screenshot. Leave a rating, review, take a screenshot, send it to us so we know exactly who you are. And then once a week, every week on the podcast, we will announce a new winner. Don't forget to take a screenshot and send it to us so we know exactly who you are. We'll announce a new winner every week.
You were just listening to the Accelerated Investor Podcast with Josh Cantwell. If you enjoyed this episode and learned something new, help us build the AI community by leaving a review and 5-star rating on our iTunes podcast channel. Also, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode. To see passive investing opportunities, visit freelandventures.com/passive. To start your journey toward the lifestyle you've always dreamed of with multifamily apartments, apply for one-on-one coaching with Josh at www.joshcantwellcoaching.com.